Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to What Would You Want People to Value You For? Gaur Gopal does. What would I want people to value me for? Good advice? um, that's about it, I guess. Advice. And I guess this is the reason why I watch a lot of these kind of videos and trying to understand and trying to come to this kind of compromise. Maybe some people will disagree with me saying you shouldn't be compromising on these things, but I want to try to save as many people as possible. But I'm not saving people. So what I'm trying to do is trying to get people to walk into the safe directions as much as possible and hope that they go the rest of the way. I suppose that's what I'm trying to do. Anyways, let's go ahead and hear what it has to say.
In a certain city there lived a poet who was very philosophical and renowned. He was not a rich man and led a very simple life. A very wealthy businessman living in the same city was getting his daughter married in a 7-star hotel with great pomp and grandeur, and he also invited the poet to attend the wedding alongside the prominent, wealthy and elite guests from the city. On the day of the wedding, the businessman and his family were personally receiving the guests at the lobby of the hotel and ushering them towards the wedding venue. All the wealthy people of the city who had come were decked up, wearing expensive, branded clothing. When the poet arrived, dressed in very simple, non-expensive clothes as always, he waited in a corner for someone to approach him. Forget about approaching. No one even acknowledged his presence. Even the merchant didn't pay any attention and pretended as if he hadn't seen him. The poet quietly walked away and went to a close-by shop where he could hire good clothes. He chose a very high-end, expensive, rich, elegant dress, and as he put on the hired dress and looked into the mirror, he was amazed to see his transformed, changed royal look. When the now regal-looking poet came back to the venue, he was given a grand welcome. The merchant hugged him, treating him with great love and respect, exactly as he would treat his own friend.
Kind of funny though. I mean, this is very much true even in modern times. I mean, how do I say? Even when you're walking down the street, when you see someone poor, not well dressed, you're kind of like, oh, what's wrong? That happens even in modern times, and it is how you present yourself, though. And again, I think it's more on the lines of dressing decent, as opposed to dressing like, how do I say, like you have ripped, like dirty clothes, like you didn't wash. So so how you present yourself is kind of how you represent yourself, I suppose. Obviously, you don't need to be wearing fancy branded clothes or anything like that, but I guess you kind of have to match the occasion. You know, you don't you don't go to a party naked. Well, maybe some people do, but that's a different story. But yeah, I mean, I get what it's saying, you know. I would say it's a bit weird though. It's like if he's just dressed in like common clothes, not rich, but it's clean and all that, that would be weird. But if it's like dirty or has a lot of holes, that's a different story. You know, you're going to a party, you need to put your best foot forward. You don't have to go buy expensive clothes, but look decent. But yeah.
And kept praising his dressing sense. After introducing the poet to all those present, the merchant led him to the dining area, while still praising his poetry, maturity, and wisdom. He made the poet sit in a very prominent place on a beautifully crafted couch with soft cushions. The food was being served in expensive fine crockery and cutlery, and the merchant lovingly served the delicious meal to the poet with his own hands. And then something strange happened. Instead of eating the meal, the poet started dipping the corner of his coat in the soup. He sprinkled a part of the fancy rice prep on his trouser. Addressing his own clothes, he said, "This is a feast for you, my dear clothes. You guys should enjoy it." All the guests were surprised at this weird behavior. Finding this bizarre, The host asked the poet, "What are you doing, dear sir? How can your clothes eat? And why under the sun would your clothes want to eat?" The poet very quickly and calmly replied, "My dear friend, I'm a little astonished that you are asking me this question. Aren't you the same person who conveniently ignored me when I arrived here dressed up in simple clothes? I think it's my dress, my looks, my attire, my appearance that you value more than me. Now that I've put on these expensive clothes, I see a world of difference in the way that I'm treated here by you. I thought that everything that I received here was for my looks and my clothes, and therefore the food should also be served to my clothes." The embarrassed businessman had learnt his lesson, and seeking forgiveness, he offered his heartfelt apologies to the poet. Dear friends, isn't it sad that we live in a world, a very superficial world, where we are accepted more for what we have than for who we are?
Oh, and I don't disagree with them at all. It is very much true. Like I said, when you look at like homeless people, sometimes it all depends on how they look. The only reason why I guess they kind of have this outlook is because they don't know. There are very much disturbed homeless people who will hit you, grab you, take from you, steal from you. But it's not all of them, obviously. But that's the thing, you don't know. I mean, you can even say the same thing for everyday people that's walking around you. You don't know who's a murderer that could be walking right next to you one day, being nice and friendly and saying hi. But I guess it's the percentage. So this is going to the math right here. It's the chances of, I guess you could say, what would be the chances actually? Maybe it's just it is very much an outlook of life. But generally speaking, you walk amongst the people who are dressed nicely every day, and you're more comfortable with them than people who you don't walk every day with. Let's say you go to a foreign country, you would not be comfortable walking around them, but they dress nicely. It's because you're not used to them. Same thing with anything in general. Homeless people, you don't walk around homeless people every day. If you did, you'd be comfortable around them. You'd just be walking by. But I think it's more along the lines of what you're used to and accustomed to. It's the reason why you do certain things. And this venue is accustomed to be dressed. So you're treated that way. When you're not dressed, you're more than other. And don't get me wrong, it's really weird. I don't like going to, well, I was never invited to one. So I don't have fancy dress really. But yeah, I mean, there's also a saying in America, first impressions. And generally, you have to you present yourself the best way possible to have a good first impressions. Because sometimes and the reason for that is sometimes that's the only chance you get to meet someone. That one time, sometimes that's all it takes for them to say, hey, you're an interesting person. And first impression doesn't just go by looks alone, but, obviously looks, how you present yourself, and what you talk about.
We're accepted more for what we wear than for who we are. We are accepted more for what we look like than for who we are.
Quick right there, sorry. Is the fact that when there's a stranger, how do you know them? You don't. The initial, how they present themselves initially by how they dress and how they present themselves is how you know them. I'm not saying like you know their entire history or anything, but if they present themselves well, you're more accepting of them, I suppose. Obviously, no matter how a person dress, you will never know who they really are, no matter what they dress, how they dress. But being dressed more along the lines of, I guess, fancy people, especially go fancy people stuff, if you fancy people dressed like them, then you'll be accepted by them because you're like them. But if you're the other, like I said earlier, where you'll probably be shunned away a little bit because they just don't know. It's not like I don't think it's like they really want to shun you away or anything. It's just that you're not dressed for the occasion. Again, it's not to take away anything from what he said. It's absolutely true that, it's kind of sad that we do that, but at the same time, I understand why it's done. So I'm not going to sit there and it's like, oh, they hate me because I'm wearing a gray t-shirt to a fancy place. I know I forgot my pants and underwear, but still, I have a gray t-shirt on, for crying out loud.
We are accepted more for where we live than for who we are. We are accepted more for which cars we drive than for who we are. Unfortunately, our worth is measured based on our external achievements and value, and not based on the merits of our being a genuine person and a good human being. किसी ने क्या खूब कहा है, जरा सी जेब क्या फट गई, सिक्कों से ज्यादा तो रिश्ते गिर गए. Guys, treat people based on who they are, not based on what they have. And if you find yourself in the company of such shallow-minded people who feed your clothes, keep a high-hello relationship with them.
Yeah.
And look for genuine friends who can truly see your true worth.
100%. I do not disagree, and that's what I was about to get to. It's the fact that it's so much more difficult to value someone for who they are because it takes a while to know who they are. What you see externally is easily valued, but doesn't mean that the person underneath those clothes or whatever it is a person of value. You can, this again, first impressions kind of deal, where if it's like, oh, it looks nice, he might be a person I want to know. It's like, oh, this person's dressed nice. He has a Pokemon hat, Pokemon t-shirt, Pokemon shorts, Pokemon underwear. I don't know how I'm saying that. And Pokemon pants or shoes. It's like, ah, this is a person I want to know. Does that mean that person is like really good or great? We don't know. It's hard to know just by initial looks. But initial looks matters as much as you don't want it to or not. You know, it does matter. See, as my look, it's always fancy. You know, it's like I never change. Anyways, but yes, it could be a sad truth. It could be the truth. It is a truth, and as long as you understand that, you know, you can make that work with you, not against you. But yeah, obviously, I would probably never show up in an event. I don't know. Maybe I will. I doubt it. At what point in my life I'm going to go up to an event where I have to wear a tuxedo and stuff? That's so uncomfortable. And then also the cost to get into that place. Yeah, I'm broke, so that's never going to happen. But anyways, I get what he's saying. Absolutely. Just understand that the reason why you're valued externally than internally is because it's much easier to make a judgment call externally. It's something that we all do. If we understand that, I don't think we necessarily have hateful thoughts towards people. It's like, yeah, you know, I stink, but I should have took a shower. You know, and maybe that's the reason why people are not wanting to come close to me. It's because I stink, or my clothes stink. But obviously, if you wear just normal shirt and whatnot, and you're not dressed for the occasion, it makes sense as to why that is. You know, you don't see people going in bikini suits and stuff going into parties. I mean, maybe some do, but I don't know, because they're not dressed for the occasion. Even if they're rich, they're not dressed appropriately. So it's not a matter of whether you're rich or poor. Are you dressed for the occasion? If we can understand that, we can say, okay, you know, I don't have the clothes for this, and I'm not going to go. That's fine. I don't know. If you think I'm wrong, please let me know, because I'm open to hearing other people's opinions about this, and this is merely mine. And this is, I guess, one reason why I preach understanding, so that I think if you understand things, and if you understand life, it becomes a lot easier. It becomes easier, and you suffer less. Anyway, some more action to what would you want people to value you for? For my stinky, I meant my good advice. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.